The red dwarf star cast its crimson glow across Ilara's barren landscape, illuminating ancient temple ruins now covered in moss and dust. Inside the glass dome of the Elder Council, 12 Ilari elders sat in contemplative silence, their translucent skin reflecting the diminishing light of another day ending, the 195th day since their expulsion from the Galactic Alliance. Elder Thorin, the oldest among them at 713 years, gazed through the dome at the desolate plains that once held magnificent libraries and healing centers. The Ilari civilization had once been mighty, respected throughout the galaxy as teachers, healers, and knowledge keepers. They had guided younger races, shared their wisdom, and promoted peace for millennia. Now, they were forgotten, cast aside like a tool that had served its purpose. "Another day passes," Elder Vela whispered, her voice carrying the weight of 5 centuries of isolation. "Perhaps tomorrow will be different." It was the same hopeful phrase uttered every evening for the past 523 years. None truly believed it anymore. The communication panel on the central table flickered unexpectedly, causing several elders to gasp. It had been decades since they'd received any transmission from beyond their star system. "A signal," Elder Thoran announced, his long fingers trembling as he activated the ancient console. "It's not from the Alliance patrol stations. Not from smuggler outposts either." The panel crackled with static before a message played in multiple languages, cycling through forgotten dialects until it reached one they all understood. "We remember the Ilari. We see you. We are coming." The 12 elders exchanged bewildered glances. Was this a cruel joke? A new threat? Or something else entirely? "Scan for vessel signatures," Elder Thorin commanded. "Nothing yet," another elder replied, after checking the sensor readings. "The signal originated from beyond our system, but there's no warp signature matching Alliance fleets or pirate bands." Elder Vela's eyes, once brilliant blue but now faded to pale azure, widened. "Could it be help?" The word seemed foreign in their council chamber, a concept abandoned centuries ago when the last diplomatic ship had departed their orbit, leaving the Ilari to their slow decline. "We should prepare," Elder Thorin said cautiously. "Whether for friend or foe, we must be ready." But what could they prepare? Their once great defenses had crumbled. Their technology barely maintained the life support systems within the dome. The Ilari had honored their oath of peace, even when cast out, never developing weapons or means of war. The signal repeated once more before fading. "We remember the Ilari. We see you. We are coming." In the silence that followed, Elder Vela turned her gaze upward, searching the stars visible through the dome. "After all this time," she whispered, "why would anyone remember us now?" No one had an answer. They could only wait and hope that tomorrow would, indeed, be different. 3 days later, the Ilari sensors detected unusual activity at the edge of their star system. Multiple vessels had dropped out of faster-than-light travel, their engines powering down to sublight speeds as they approached the outer planets. "They're conducting open sensor sweeps," reported Elder Zhen, who monitored their ancient detection equipment. "No offensive postures, no weapon signatures active." The vessels bore markings unknown to the Ilari database. Their hulls were rugged, patched in places with mismatched armor plating, lacking the sleek uniformity of Alliance ships. Elder Thorin observed the incoming data with growing concern. "Send the greeting protocols. Let us see if they respond." Before they could transmit, another signal reached them. "Greetings to the Ilari people of Ilara. This is Commander Hale of the Terran Scout Fleet. We come in peace and friendship. We request permission to approach your world." The council chamber erupted in murmurs. Terran. The name was unfamiliar. "They're human," Elder Vela realized, accessing the ancient archives. From Earth, a young race that achieved space travel only 3 centuries ago. They weren't even interstellar when we were expelled from the Alliance. "Why would humans seek us out?" asked another elder. "We have nothing to offer them." Elder Thorin silenced the discussion with a raised hand. "We should respond, whatever their purpose. It has been over 5 centuries since any outsiders approached with such courtesy." He activated the transmission system, his voice steadier than he felt. "This is the Elder Council of Alara. We welcome peaceful contact. Approach with caution. Our orbital defenses are no longer operational." The human commander's response came quickly. "Understood. Elder Council. We will maintain a respectful distance. Request permission to send a small delegation to your coordinates for direct communication." Before the Council could debate this new development, their sensors detected a much larger energy signature entering the system, multiple ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel in precise formation. "Alliance vessels," Elder Zhen confirmed, his voice tight with fear. "A full battle group, 8 cruisers, 16 support craft." An Alliance communication burst through their channel, overriding the connection with the Terran vessels. "Attention, unidentified fleet in Alari space. This is Admiral Krazel of the Galactic Alliance Enforcement Division. You are engaging in unauthorized contact with a non-member world. Withdraw immediately or face interdiction." The Elder Council watched in dismay as the situation deteriorated rapidly. The Alliance had never cared about who visited Alara before. Smugglers, waste disposal ships, and the occasional curious explorer had come and gone without Alliance interference. Why would they intervene now? To their surprise, the Terran commander opened a 3-way channel, addressing both the Alari and the Alliance simultaneously. "Admiral Krazel, this is Commander Hale of the Terran Scout Fleet. We are conducting peaceful diplomatic contact with the Alari people. We have violated no treaty or regulation that applies to independent human worlds." Admiral Krazel's response was immediate and cold. "The Alari have no diplomatic standing within the Alliance. Any technological or cultural exchange with them requires Alliance oversight. Your presence here is unauthorized. You have 2 hours to withdraw." Elder Thorin felt a chill run through his ancient body. The Alliance had never shown such interest in protecting them before. Whatever these humans wanted, the Alliance was determined they shouldn't have it. Commander Hale's voice remained steady. "Admiral, with respect, the Terran Confederation recognizes the sovereign status of the Alari civilization. We are here at their invitation and will depart only at their request." The statement was technically untrue. They had not invited the humans. But Elder Thorin understood the diplomatic maneuver. The human was establishing a position. "The Alari lost their political status 523 years ago." Admiral Krazel responded. "They are a protectorate under Alliance jurisdiction." Elder Vela couldn't contain herself. "Protectorate? You abandoned us to die. No Alliance ship has landed here in over 2 centuries. There was a pause before Commander Hale spoke again. "It seems the Alari perspective differs from yours, Admiral. The Terran Confederation comes to protect those who have been forgotten. We will remain in Alari space as long as we are welcomed by its rightful inhabitants." The Alliance Admiral's voice grew colder. "This is your final warning, Commander. The Galactic Alliance does not recognize Terran authority to interfere in our internal matters. Withdraw your vessels, or we will remove them." The transmission ended abruptly. In the silence that followed, Elder Thorin turned to the rest of the Council. "What do these humans truly want with us? And why does the Alliance suddenly care about our isolation after centuries of neglect?" Before anyone could speculate, Commander Hale's voice returned on a private channel to the Alari. "Elder Council, I understand your caution. You have no reason to trust us. But know this: humanity remembers the ancient records of Alari healers who once saved thousands on old Earth during the 3rd pandemic. We have not forgotten your people's wisdom and compassion when you walked among the stars. The Alliance may have abandoned you, but humanity stands ready to help. The choice, however, is yours. If you wish us to leave, we will respect your decision." The council chamber fell silent as the elders absorbed this unexpected revelation. Their ancestors had indeed sent healing missions throughout the galaxy, including to primitive Earth, long before their fall from grace. "They remember us," Elder Vela whispered, tears forming in her eyes. "After all this time, someone remembers." Lieutenant Rye stood at the tactical display aboard the Terran flagship, Defiant Dawn, studying the Alliance fleet's formation. 8 cruisers arranged in a standard enforcement pattern. Weapon systems powered, but not targeting. Yet. "They're positioning for containment, not engagement," she reported to Commander Hale. "Classic intimidation tactics." Commander Hale nodded, her dark eyes fixed on the holographic display. She was a woman of medium height with close-cropped black hair streaked with silver, a testament to 20 years of Terran fleet service. The lines around her eyes deepened as she considered their precarious position. "And our odds if they decide to engage?" she asked quietly, ensuring only Rye could hear. Lieutenant Rye ran the calculations again, though they both knew the answer. "Not favorable, Commander. Their ships outmass ours 3-1, and their weapons technology is generally considered superior. However," she paused, highlighting specific areas on the Alliance vessels. "Their design emphasizes overwhelming force over tactical flexibility. They're not expecting a fight." Commander Hale's expression remained neutral, but Rye could see the tension in her shoulders. This mission had always carried risks, but direct confrontation with the Galactic Alliance wasn't supposed to be one of them. The Terran Confederation was still establishing itself among the interstellar powers. They couldn't afford an all-out conflict. "Any response from the Alari Council?" Hale asked. "Not yet, Commander. They're likely debating our offer. Or questioning our sanity," Hale added with a grim smile. She turned to her communications officer. "Open a channel to Admiral Marcus on Earth." Within moments, the weathered face of Admiral Theo Marcus appeared on the secure channel. The Terran Strategic Command insignia gleamed on his collar as he leaned forward, concern evident in his expression. "Commander Hale, I take it the situation has escalated?" "Alliance enforcement fleet on site, sir. Admiral Krazel commanding. They've ordered us to withdraw within 2 hours." Admiral Marcus frowned. Krazel has a reputation for rigid adherence to Alliance protocols, but this response seems disproportionate to a simple diplomatic contact. "My assessment exactly, sir," Hale replied. "Something else is happening here. The intelligence division suspected the Alliance might have hidden interests regarding the Alari, but this confirms it." Marcus paused, weighing his next words carefully. "Commander, your primary mission remains unchanged. Establish contact and offer protection to the Alari if they wish it. However, you are not to engage Alliance forces unless directly fired upon." "And if they fire first, sir?" "Then you defend yourselves and the Alari with all necessary force." His expression hardened. "The Terran Confederation will not abandon another civilization to satisfy Alliance politics." "Understood, Admiral." After the transmission ended, Commander Hale turned to Lieutenant Rye. "What's your assessment? Why would the Alliance suddenly care about the Alari after centuries of neglect?" Rye had been pondering this very question. Her background in intelligence analysis made her naturally suspicious of convenient timing. "2 possibilities, Commander. Either they've discovered something valuable about Alara that they previously overlooked, or our interest in the Alari has triggered something deeper within Alliance politics." Rye pulled up historical files on her datapad. The Alari were custodians of knowledge, healers, and mediators. They held significant cultural influence despite their relatively small population. Their expulsion 5 centuries ago came after they opposed Alliance military expansion. Commander Hale nodded slowly. "You think this isn't about the Alari themselves, but about preventing their voice from being heard again?" "Possibly. Silencing a witness is sometimes more important than the crime they witnessed." Rye hesitated. Commander, if I may, is this intervention worth risking our ships and crews? The Alari have survived this long without us. Commander Hale studied her tactical officer carefully. Survived, yes, but at what cost? A civilization reduced to a single dome, their knowledge and culture fading away. Sometimes, survival isn't enough. Lieutenant, she straightened her uniform. We all volunteered for this mission, knowing the risks. The question isn't whether the Alari are worth saving. It's what kind of civilization we want humanity to be. Before Rai could respond, the communications officer interrupted. Commander, incoming transmission from the Alari Elder Council. Hale nodded. Put it through. The weathered face of Elder Thorin appeared on screen. Commander Hale of the Terran Scout Fleet, the Council has reached a decision. We accept your offer of dialogue and protection. However, we cannot, in good conscience, ask you to risk conflict with the Alliance on our behalf. Commander Hale's expression softened slightly. Elder Thorin, with respect, that decision isn't yours to make. The Terran Confederation recognizes the Alari as a sovereign people with the right to determine their own future. If the Alliance chooses conflict to prevent that, the responsibility lies with them, not you. The Elder's pale eyes widened slightly. You would risk war for a people you've never met? We would stand for principles we believe in, Hale corrected. Justice doesn't recognize political expediency. A faint smile crossed Elder Thoran's ancient face. Then we welcome you to Alara, Commander Hale. May your arrival herald better days than we have known. As the transmission ended, Lieutenant Rai looked at her commander with newfound respect. Orders, Commander. Hale turned to her bridge crew, her voice clear and decisive. Battle stations. Deploy in defensive formation around Alara. We will not fire unless fired upon, but we will be ready if that moment comes. Throughout the Defiant Dawn and its escort vessels, Terran crews moved with practiced efficiency, preparing for a confrontation they hoped to avoid, but were ready to face. Admiral Krazel paced the bridge of the Alliance flagship, indomitable, his scaled fingers tapping against the ceremonial dagger at his belt, a nervous habit he'd never managed to break. Around him, the bridge crew of the finest ship in the Alliance fleet monitored the Terran vessels with growing concern. They're deploying into a defensive screen around the planet, his tactical officer reported. No weapons targeting yet, but their shields are raised. Arrogant primitives, Krazel muttered. Humans had achieved faster-than-light travel barely 3 centuries ago. Yet they presumed to challenge the Galactic Alliance, a coalition of 1,000 worlds with technologies millennia beyond Earth's. He turned to his communications officer. Any response from the Shadow Council? None yet, Admiral. Their deliberations continue. Krazel suppressed a grimace. The Shadow Web, the inner circle of Alliance leadership, operated through encryption and misdirection, even with their own military commanders. He knew only that the Alari situation had triggered an emergency session of their covert council, but not why these forgotten aliens suddenly mattered after centuries of irrelevance. His second-in-command approached cautiously. Admiral, the deadline approaches. The Terrans show no signs of withdrawal. I can see that, Commander Voss, Krazel snapped. He stared at the tactical display, at the pitiful handful of human ships positioned between his battle group and the Alari homeworld. Their vessels were crewed by Alliance standards, practical, heavily armored, but lacking the elegant efficiency of Alliance technology. His private communication channel chimed. Krazel motioned for privacy and accepted the transmission. The shadowed figure that appeared used a voice modulator and visual distortion field. Standard Shadow Web protocol. Admiral Krazel, the Council has reached a decision. The Alari must remain isolated. The humans must withdraw or be removed. Understood, Krazel replied, masking his confusion. May I ask why these forgotten aliens warrant such attention after 5 centuries? A pause. The Alari possess certain historical records that contradict official alliance narratives. Their reintegration into galactic affairs would be politically destabilizing. Additionally, human interest in forgotten races could inspire others. This precedent cannot be allowed. The transmission ended before Krazel could ask further questions. Historical records? What could these withered aliens possibly know that threatened the Alliance after all this time? Regardless, his orders were clear. Krazel straightened his uniform and returned to the command center. Open a channel to the Terran flagship. Commander Hale's face appeared on screen, her expression calm but resolute. Commander Hale, Krazel began, not bothering with pleasantries. Your time has expired. Remove your vessels from Ilari space immediately, or we will do so forcibly. The human commander met his gaze steadily. Admiral Krazel, my ships are in a legally recognized defensive posture within the sovereign territory of the Ilari civilization. Any aggressive action against us would constitute an unprovoked attack under interstellar law. Krazel felt his scales flush with anger. You dare lecture me on law? The Alliance determines interstellar law. You have one final chance. Commander, withdraw. We will not abandon the Ilari, Hale replied simply. End of discussion. The transmission cut abruptly. Krazel turned to his weapons officer, rage barely contained. Target their lead vessel. Fire a warning shot. Close enough to scorch their hull sensors, but not cause critical damage. Sir, a warning shot might... Do it! Krazel barked. These humans need to learn their place. The weapons officer complied, selecting a glancing trajectory for a plasma lance burst that would pass within meters of the human flagship's sensor array, close enough to demonstrate Alliance firepower without triggering full-scale conflict. The red plasma beam lanced out across space, illuminating the darkness between the fleets. It should have passed harmlessly by the human vessel with room to spare. It never got the chance. With reaction speeds that surprised even Krazel, the Terran flagship pivoted on its axis, simultaneously launching what appeared to be a primitive railgun projectile. The hypersonic round intercepted the plasma beam in the vacuum between the fleets, creating a spectacular dispersion effect that neutralized the warning shot. Krazel stared in disbelief. The humans had anticipated his tactics and countered with a precisely calculated defense. But before he could issue new orders, Commander Hale's voice came through on all frequencies. Admiral Krazel, that concludes your warning. Initiating active defense protocols. The Terran vessels suddenly shifted formation, presenting their most heavily armored sections toward the Alliance fleet while maintaining their protective screen around Alara. The maneuver was executed with surprising precision for ships of such seemingly crude design. They're powering up weapon systems, his tactical officer reported, voice tinged with concern. But maintaining defensive posture only. Krazel felt the situation slipping from his control. The humans weren't behaving according to any standard Alliance tactical doctrine. They should have either fled or attacked. This calculated defensive stance wasn't in his strategic playbook. Target their flagship's propulsion systems, he ordered. Disable, don't destroy. His weapons officer hesitated only briefly before complying. The Indomitables, main weapons array charged, targeting calculations locked on the Terran flagship's engine section. The moment the Alliance cruiser fired, every officer on Krazel's bridge witnessed something they'd been told was impossible. The human flagship's defense system fired a single railgun round, a primitive kinetic weapon by Alliance standards, that somehow intercepted and penetrated the cruiser's energy shield at precisely the point where the weapon fire originated. The railgun round, traveling at a significant fraction of light speed, struck the Indomitable's main weapons array with devastating accuracy. Secondary explosions cascaded across the port side of the cruiser as power conduits overloaded. Direct hit, the damage control officer shouted. Weapons array disabled. How did they... All ships, open fire, Krazel roared, abandoning all pretense of a measured response. Destroy those primitive vessels. The Alliance battle group responded instantly. Multiple cruisers targeting the outnumbered Terran fleet. Energy weapons and guided projectiles streaked across space toward the human ships. But the Terrans were ready. Their vessels moved in perfect coordination, intercepting incoming fire with point defense systems that seemed impossibly accurate. When they couldn't evade or intercept, their reinforced hull plating absorbed impacts that should have crippled them. And they returned fire, not in a wild barrage, but with precise, targeted strikes that focused exclusively on weapon systems and propulsion. The humans weren't trying to destroy the Alliance vessels. They were systematically disarming them. Within minutes, 3 Alliance cruisers had lost primary weapons capability, and 2 more were venting atmosphere from precision strikes to their engine compartments. Not a single Terran vessel had suffered critical damage. From the Alari Dome, the Elders watched in astonishment as flashes of weapons fire illuminated their sky for the first time in centuries. The battle unfolding above them seemed impossible, the mighty Alliance fleet being systematically neutralized by a handful of human ships. Elder Vela gripped Elder Thorn's hand. "They're actually defending us," she whispered. "After all this time, someone fights for Alara." Aboard the Indomitable, Admiral Krazel stared at the tactical display in disbelief. Half his battle group effectively neutralized, the rest taking increasingly desperate evasive actions as the humans continued their methodical defense. "We've underestimated them," his second-in-command stating the obvious. Krazel's hands clenched into fists. "Signal the remaining vessels. Tactical withdrawal to regroup at Virex 9. "Sir, we're retreating?" "We're regrouping," Krazel snarled. "And contacting High Command for reinforcements. This isn't over." As the undamaged Alliance vessels moved to assist their crippled comrades, Commander Hale's voice once again echoed across all channels. "Admiral Krazel, we will allow your withdrawal without pursuit. We have no desire for continued conflict. However, be advised that any return to Alari space with hostile intent will be met with the same response. The Terran Confederation now extends protection to the Alari people by their request and consent." Krazel cut the transmission before he could say something that would worsen his already precarious position. As his battle group limped away from Alara, he couldn't shake the feeling that something historic had just occurred, something that would ripple through Alliance politics for years to come. And somewhere in the shadows of power, the Shadow Web Council was already calculating its next move. 3 days after the Alliance retreat, the first Terran support vessels arrived in Alari orbit. Unlike the defensive ships with their reinforced hulls and weapon systems, these were sleek vessels designed for humanitarian missions, medical intervention, and infrastructure development. Elder Thorin stood at the landing pad constructed hastily outside the glass dome, the first time in decades he'd ventured beyond its protective confines. Beside him, Elder Vela trembled slightly, whether from the unfiltered air or from emotion. He couldn't tell. The first shuttle descended gently, kicking up swirls of red dust from Alara's parched surface. When the hatch opened, Commander Hale emerged, followed by a team of humans in various uniforms denoting different specialties. "Elder Thoran," Hale said. Bowing slightly in a gesture of respect, she and her crew had researched from ancient Alari customs. "I bring greetings from Earth and the Terran Confederation." Thoran returned the bow, his movements stiff from age. "Commander Hale, Alara welcomes you, the first friendly visitors we have received in generations." Behind Hale, medical teams, engineers, agricultural specialists, and cultural exchange officers lined up. Each carried equipment designed to help restore what had been lost. "These are but the first of many," Hale explained, gesturing to her people. "With your permission, they will help rebuild what time and isolation have taken from Alara." Elder Vela stepped forward, her ancient eyes bright with unshed tears. "Why would you do this for us? What do you hope to gain?" Commander Hale's expression softened. 5 centuries ago, When humanity was still confined to Earth, Ilari healers saved thousands of human lives during a pandemic that threatened to collapse our civilization. It is recorded in our oldest digital archives. We never forgot that debt. She gestured to the stars above. But beyond historical gratitude, we believe in a different kind of interstellar community. One where the worth of a civilization isn't measured by its military might or economic output, but by its contribution to the greater good. The Ilari were teachers and healers to the galaxy once. Perhaps they can be again. For the first time in centuries, hope blossomed in Elder Thorin's heart. "Then let us begin," he said simply. Over the following days, Terran specialists worked alongside the Ilari, first addressing immediate needs: water purification systems, agricultural revival, medical treatment for conditions the Ilari had endured for generations without proper care. The humans approached each task with respect, learning from the Ilari even as they helped them. Engineers reinforced the failing life support systems of the glass dome. Medical teams treated illnesses that had become chronic through neglect. Agricultural specialists introduced hardy crops that could thrive in Ilara's depleted soil. Commander Hale and Lieutenant Rye often visited the surface, coordinating efforts between the orbiting fleet and the ground teams. During one such visit, they walked with Elder Thorin through the ancient archives, vast chambers beneath the dome where millennia of Ilari knowledge had been preserved against all odds. "Your people maintained all of this, even as your basic needs went unmet," Rye observed, running her fingers along crystalline data storage units containing medical treaties, philosophical texts, and historical records. "Knowledge was always our greatest treasure," Elder Thorin explained. "Even as our bodies weakened, we could not bear to let our ancestors' wisdom perish." He led them deeper into the archives, to a sealed chamber that required his biometric signature to access. Inside, a single pedestal held what appeared to be an ordinary data crystal. "This," he said gravely, "is why the Alliance truly fears our return to galactic society." Commander Hale approached cautiously. "What is it?" "The complete, unaltered records of the founding of the Galactic Alliance," Thorin replied, "including the original charter that guaranteed representation and protection for all member worlds, regardless of size or military capability." Lieutenant Rye's eyes widened. "The charter that would have prevented your expulsion 5 centuries ago." Thorin nodded. The Alliance leadership amended their founding documents and erased the originals from all official repositories. They claimed the changes reflected evolving realities of interstellar governance. In truth, they removed the very protections that would have saved us and countless other smaller civilizations that have since been marginalized or abandoned. Commander Hale stared at the crystal. "And you've preserved the original charter all this time?" "Along with documented evidence of its systematic erasure," Thorin confirmed. "The current Alliance leadership, those who call themselves the Shadow Web, fear nothing more than this truth becoming known throughout the galaxy." Rye turned to her commander. "This explains the disproportionate response to our arrival. It was never about the Ilari themselves. It's about maintaining the Alliance's carefully constructed narrative." Commander Hale's expression hardened. "Then perhaps it's time that narrative was challenged." But even as the Terrans helped the Ilari rebuild their world, darker forces were already in motion. On Virex 9, a desolate moon serving as an Alliance monitoring station, Admiral Krazel received an encrypted communication from the Shadow Web Council. The shadowed figure spoke without preamble. "The situation has evolved beyond acceptable parameters. Admiral, the humans cannot be allowed to establish a permanent presence on Ilara. Their actions threaten the stability of the Alliance power structure." Krazel had expected recrimination for his failure. Instead, he was being given a second chance. "What are your orders, Counselor?" "Military action has proven ineffective and counterproductive. We must employ more subtle methods. Operation Shadow Doubt has been approved." Krazel felt a chill, despite his reptilian physiology. Shadow Doubt was a comprehensive disinformation campaign designed to destroy trust between emerging alliances. It had been used only twice in alliance history, with devastating effectiveness. The humans must be made to appear as conquerors, not saviors. The counselor continued. Evidence will be planted, suggesting they intend to strip mine Ilara for rare minerals. Falsified communications will show their humanitarian mission as a cover for military expansion. By the time we finish, the galaxy will see the Terran Confederation as opportunistic colonizers exploiting a vulnerable population. And the Ilari themselves? Krazel asked. They will be portrayed as desperate collaborators, willing to sell their heritage for Terran protection. Their credibility will be destroyed before they can reveal anything inconvenient about Alliance history. The plan was elegant in its cruelty. Without firing another shot, the shadow web would undermine everything the humans were trying to build. The necessary resources are being transferred to your command, the counselor concluded. Implementation begins immediately. Do not fail us again, Admiral. As the transmission ended, Krazel felt an unfamiliar emotion, doubt. The humans had fought honorably, targeting only military systems while avoiding unnecessary casualties. Was this deception truly necessary to maintain Alliance stability? He pushed the thought aside. His duty was to the Alliance, not to his personal sense of honor. The operation would proceed as ordered. What neither Krazel nor the Shadow Web could know was that the Terrans had anticipated exactly this kind of response. Lieutenant Rye sat in the Secure Intelligence Center aboard the Defiant Dawn, monitoring communication patterns across Alliance frequencies. 6 specialist analysts worked with her, each focused on different aspects of Alliance transmissions, official channels, commercial traffic, diplomatic exchanges, and the encrypted bursts that indicated shadow web activity. There, she said suddenly, highlighting a series of data packets. That's the 4th encrypted burst to Admiral Krazel's position in the past 6 hours. Significantly larger data transfer than standard operational communications. Commander Hale leaned over her shoulder, studying the pattern. They're feeding him something big. Reinforcement coordinates? Rye shook her head. The pattern doesn't match fleet movement protocols. This is more consistent with information warfare packages, propaganda, falsified evidence, digital manipulation tools. She looked up at her commander. They're preparing a disinformation campaign. As we expected, Hale nodded grimly. How long before implementation? Based on previous patterns, 3 to 5 days for full deployment. They'll start with seemingly independent sources reporting concerns about Terran motives, then escalate to more direct accusations. Commander Hale straightened, her decision already made. We won't give them those days. Initiate Operation Truthbearer. Alert Commander Voss that the Silent Arrow will deploy tonight. Lieutenant Rye hesitated. Commander, are you certain? Once we cross this line. The line was crossed the moment the Alliance fired on us, Hale replied firmly. We came here to help the Ilari, and that includes protecting them from lies as well as weapons. Proceed with the operation. Within hours, the stealth vessel, Silent Arrow, detached from its docking bay on the Defiant Dawn, its advanced cloaking technology rendering it virtually invisible to Alliance sensors. Commander Elandra Voss, a veteran of Terran Special Operations, led a team of 12 intelligence specialists and tactical experts on what might be the most consequential mission of their careers. Approach vector calculated, her pilot reported as they slipped away from the Ilari system. ETA to Virex 9 is 17 hours at stealth speed. Commander Voss reviewed the mission parameters one final time. The objective was clear: infiltrate the Alliance outpost on Virex 9, extract the Shadow Web disinformation package, and secure evidence of the planned operation. It was a mission that balanced on the edge of interstellar law, technically espionage, but directed at preventing a campaign of lies. All personnel, final briefing, she announced to her team. Our window of operation is narrow. Alliance rotation schedules indicate minimum staffing between Oro 200 and Oro 400 local time. We insert through the maintenance tunnels, access the central data hub, and extract the target information. Non-lethal force only. These are military personnel following orders, not our true adversaries. A young intelligence officer raised his hand. Commander, what if we encounter Shadow Web operatives rather than regular Alliance personnel? Voss's expression hardened slightly. Shadow Web agents are authorized to use lethal force for information protection. We will respond accordingly if directly threatened, but extraction of intelligence remains our priority over engagement. As the Silent Arrow continued its stealthy approach to Virex 9, preparations of a different kind were underway on Ilara. Elder Thorin had convened the full Council of Elders in a session closed even to their Terran allies. What Commander Hale proposes is unprecedented, he told his fellow elders. For millennia, the Ilari have been custodians of knowledge, never its weaponizers. Using our historical archives as leverage in galactic politics would fundamentally change who we are as a people. Elder Vela, who had grown increasingly confident since the Terran arrival, spoke firmly. And what are we now, Thoran? A dying people in a glass dome, clinging to principles while our civilization crumbles? The Alliance abandoned those principles 5 centuries ago when they expelled us. Perhaps it is time we adapted as well. Murmurs of agreement and dissent rippled through the chamber. Another elder spoke. The humans risked their lives to defend us. Should we not contribute to that defense in the way we are most able, with the truth we have preserved? Elder Thorin looked around the circle, at faces that had aged alongside his own through centuries of isolation. Then let us put it to a vote. Those in favor of sharing the original Alliance Charter and supporting documentation with our Terran allies, raise your hands. One by one, hands lifted. First Elder Velas, then others, until 11 of the 12 elders had signaled their support. Only Thorin himself had not voted. You disagree, Elder Thorin? Vela asked gently. The ancient Ilari closed his eyes briefly. No. I merely wish to confirm that this momentous decision was truly the will of our people, not just my own. He raised his hand, completing the unanimous vote. So be it. We will share the full archives with Commander Hale upon her return. May this truth serve healing rather than vengeance. As the Ilari made their decision, the Silent Arrow entered the outer atmosphere of Virex 9, its stealth systems working at maximum capacity to avoid detection. The barren moon housed only a small Alliance outpost, officially a monitoring station for astronomical phenomena, but in reality, a secure communications hub for operations that Alliance leadership preferred to keep outside standard channels. Commander Voss led her team through the final preparation sequence. Stealth suits activated, non-lethal weapons checked, electronic countermeasures primed. The moment had come. Remember, she told them as they prepared to disembark, we are here for information, not confrontation. The fate of the Ilari and potentially the future relationship between humanity and the Alliance rests on our success tonight. Under the crimson light of the gas giant that Virex 9 orbited, 12 shadows moved silently toward the Alliance outpost, carrying with them the hopes of a forgotten civilization and the determination of humanity to stand against injustice. Even when that injustice came wrapped in the authority of the most powerful interstellar government in known space. The truth was about to be unveiled, whether the Shadow Web was ready or not. The Alliance outpost on Virex 9 sat nestled in a shallow crater, its architecture blending with the natural rock formations to minimize visibility from orbit. Commander Voss led her team through a maintenance access tunnel that their intelligence had identified as the least monitored entry point. Atmospheric processors ahead, her second-in-command whispered through the secure communication system. 3 technicians on duty, standard rotation. Voss nodded, signaling to the specialist carrying their electronic countermeasures package. The young woman activated a device that generated a localized power fluctuation. Nothing dramatic enough to trigger emergency protocols, but sufficient to draw the technician's attention to the environmental control panels. As the Alliance personnel moved to investigate the apparent malfunction, the Terran team slipped past them and deeper into the facility. Their objective lay at the heart of the outpost, the secure data center, where Admiral Krazel would have received and stored the Shadow Web disinformation package. "Intercept team status?" Voss queried through the comm. "In position at secondary junction," came the response. "Ready to divert any security response." They moved efficiently through dimly lit corridors, their stealth suits adapting to match the metallic gray of the Alliance facility. When they encountered a patrol of 2 security officers, they simply pressed against the wall, their technology rendering them virtually invisible unless directly examined. At the entrance to the data center, Voss paused. According to their intelligence, this door required both biometric authentication and command-level access codes, neither of which they possessed. "Plan Omega," she whispered to her technical specialist. The woman nodded, retrieving a device that had been developed specifically for this mission. Based on recovered Alliance technology, it could simulate the biometric signature of any individual whose data had been scanned by Terran intelligence systems during the recent battle. Admiral Krazel's retinal pattern and voice print had been captured when he opened communications with Commander Hale. The specialist applied the device to the security panel. After 30 tense seconds, the door slid open with a soft hiss. Inside, the data center hummed with activity. Banks of servers processing and storing information vital to Alliance operations in this sector. Fortunately, the late hour meant only a single technician was on duty, monitoring systems from a central console. Before the man could react to their entrance, one of Voss's team fired a neural disruptor, a non-lethal weapon that induced temporary unconsciousness. The technician slumped forward, and they quickly moved him to a comfortable position where he would wake naturally in approximately 2 hours, with no memory of the final moments before losing consciousness. "We have 20 minutes before the system requires active authentication again," the technical specialist reported, connecting their extraction devices to the main server hub. "Beginning data mining sequence." Commander Voss positioned her team to secure the room while the specialist worked. On her wrist display, a countdown timer ticked steadily downward. "Got it," the lead technical specialist announced after 11 minutes of tense silence. "Operation Shadow Doubt, full tactical overview, resource allocation, falsified evidence packages, everything." "The distribution nodes?" Voss asked. "Identified and mapped. They were planning to begin dissemination in approximately 48 hours, starting with controlled leaks to specific journalists known to be hostile to Terran expansion." Voss nodded. "Download everything and prepare Phase 2. While one team extracted the intelligence, another began uploading a carefully crafted package into the Alliance systems. This wasn't a destructive virus or malware. It was something far more potent: the truth. Hidden within the Alliance's own communication protocols, timed to activate simultaneously across hundreds of distribution channels, was the complete, unaltered historical record of the Alliance's founding charter, along with evidence of its deliberate erasure and the subsequent marginalization of smaller civilizations like the Alari. "Upload complete," the specialist confirmed. "Activation remains dormant until our signal." "Then let's move out," Voss ordered. 17 minutes until shift change." They retreated as methodically as they had entered, leaving minimal evidence of their presence. The unconscious technician would be the only indication anyone had been there, and without any memory of what had occurred. Alliance security would be left with more questions than answers. As the Silent Arrow detached from Virex 9's surface and accelerated away under stealth protocols, Commander Voss opened a secure channel to the Defiant Dawn. "Operation Truthbearer successful," she reported. "Package secured, countermeasures in place, returning to Ilara." Commander Hale's voice came through, tight with tension. "Well done, Commander. Return safely." The Alliance is mobilizing again. Multiple fleet signatures detected approaching the sector. They're coming in force this time. Voss checked her tactical display. The silent arrow would reach Alara well before the Alliance reinforcements arrived. But the coming confrontation would dwarf their previous engagement. Understood. Recommend immediate preparation for full defensive posture. Already underway. Hale confirmed. The Elder Council has made their decision as well. They're releasing their archives to us. When the Alliance arrives, they'll find more than they bargained for. As the silent arrow slipped silently through space, carrying its precious cargo of truth, Commander Voss reflected on the irony of their mission. The Shadow Web had planned to defeat the Terrans through information warfare rather than direct conflict, never suspecting that humans had become masters of that same domain. The coming battle would not be fought with railguns and plasma lances, but with facts and evidence, weapons against which even the most powerful fleet offered no defense. 3 days later, the Alliance Armada arrived in the Alari system, a force 5 times larger than the previous battle group. 25 capital ships formed the vanguard, with numerous support vessels creating a display of overwhelming military might. Admiral Krazel stood on the bridge of the flagship Indomitable, which had been hastily repaired following the previous encounter. His orders were explicit. Remove the Terran presence from Alara by any means necessary. Then implement a complete quarantine of the planet. What troubled him was the lack of information about the Shadow Web operation. His requests for status updates had been met with silence, and the prepared disinformation packages had not appeared on the specified channels at the scheduled times. Terran fleet in defensive formation around Alara, his tactical officer reported. 17 vessels, including 3 we haven't encountered before. Larger configurations, likely heavy defense platforms. Krazel nodded. The humans had used their time wisely, bringing in reinforcements of their own. Still, they remained dramatically outnumbered. "Open communications," he ordered. Commander Hale's face appeared on the main view screen, her expression calm despite the overwhelming force arrayed against her fleet. "Admiral Krazel," she acknowledged. "I see the Alliance continues to escalate a situation that could be resolved through dialogue." "There is nothing to discuss, Commander," Krazel replied coldly. "Your unauthorized presence in Alliance-controlled space ends today. Withdraw immediately, or we will remove you forcibly." Hale's expression didn't change. "Admiral, before you commence hostilities, I believe you should be aware of certain developments, specifically regarding Operation Shadow Doubt." Krazel felt his scales tighten against his skin, an involuntary stress response. How could the humans know about a classified Shadow Web operation? "I don't know what you're talking about," he said, fighting to keep his voice steady. "Then perhaps you should check your secure channels," Hale suggested. "You might find them illuminating." Before Krazel could respond, his communication officer interrupted urgently. "Admiral, we're detecting a massive data broadcast originating from multiple points throughout Alliance space. It's everywhere, sir. Every major news network, government channel, even civilian communication hubs." What's being broadcast?" Krazel demanded. The officer looked up, confusion evident in his features. "Historical documents, sir. The original Alliance Charter, records of its modification, internal communications regarding the expulsion of the Alari and other smaller civilizations. It's all there, authenticated with original encryption markers." Krazel felt the deck seeming to shift beneath him. The Shadow Web's carefully constructed narrative, the foundation of Alliance political power for centuries, was unraveling in real time. On the view screen, Commander Hale continued, "Admiral, the Terran Confederation has no desire for conflict with the Alliance. What we desire is truth, justice, and the protection of those who cannot protect themselves. The original Alliance Charter guaranteed these principles. We simply ask that they be honored once more." The bridge of the Indomitable erupted in confusion as officers received messages from their homeworlds, from family members, from political representatives, all asking about the shocking revelations spreading across Alliance space. "Sir, we're receiving priority communications from Alliance Central Command," the communications officer reported. They're ordering all fleet actions suspended pending emergency council deliberations." Krazel stared at the Terran vessels, understanding dawning with terrible clarity. They had outmaneuvered the shadow web, not through superior firepower, but through something far more powerful. The truth that the Alliance had tried to bury for centuries. "Commander Hale," he said finally, his voice subdued. "It appears our engagement will be postponed. Alliance Command requires consultation on this unexpected development." Hale nodded. "We will maintain our position protecting Alara. I suggest you use this time wisely. Admiral, the galaxy is changing as we speak." As the transmission ended, Krazel ordered his fleet to take up a holding position at the edge of the system, close enough to respond if ordered, but far enough to signal a de-escalation. In the privacy of his command quarters, he reviewed the material being broadcast across Alliance space. The original charter, with its guarantees of representation and protection for all member worlds, regardless of size or military capability. The documented proceedings where those protections were systematically removed. The internal communications revealing the deliberate marginalization of civilizations deemed politically inconvenient. And finally, the complete record of Operation Shadow Doubt, the Shadow Web's plan to destroy the reputation of the Terran Confederation through manufactured evidence and coordinated disinformation. It was damning, not just for the current Alliance leadership, but for the institutional corruption that had festered for centuries. A secure communication alert interrupted his review. The shadowed figure of his Shadow Web contact appeared, but this time the voice modulation couldn't completely hide the panic underlying the words. "Admiral Krazel, you will execute your orders immediately. Destroy the Terran fleet and quarantine Alara. The situation must be contained." Krazel straightened, something shifting in his perspective. "The situation is beyond containment, Counselor. The truth is spreading faster than our ships could ever move. You dare refuse a direct order, the consequences will be—" "The consequences are already unfolding," Krazel interrupted. "Half the Alliance worlds are demanding emergency sessions of the full Council. Member states are questioning the authority of the current leadership. Some are even calling for direct communication with the Alari." He leaned closer to the transmission. "The galaxy now knows what the Shadow Web has hidden for centuries. I suggest you prepare for the reckoning that follows." He terminated the communication before the counselor could respond. Turning to his view screen, he studied the Alari world and the Terran ships protecting it. How had it come to this? A forgotten race and a young, upstart civilization had managed to shake the foundations of the most powerful interstellar government in known space. Perhaps, Krazel reflected, power built on deception was more fragile than anyone had realized. 1 week later, the Great Hall of the Alari Elder Council hosted an unprecedented gathering. The glass dome, recently reinforced by Terran engineers, had been expanded to accommodate representatives from 24 worlds, some from the Alliance, others from independent systems, all drawn by the revelations that had rocked the interstellar community. Elder Thorin, dressed in ceremonial robes not worn in centuries, stood beside Commander Hale as they welcomed each delegation. For the first time in over 500 years, the Alari were engaging directly with the galactic community. Not as forgotten relics, but as the keepers of a truth that could no longer be denied. "I never thought I would live to see this day," Thoran confided to Hale during a brief respite between arrivals. "My people, stepping beyond our dome, our voice heard once more among the stars." Commander Hale smiled. "Truth has a power that even the strongest fleet cannot match. Elder Thorin, your people preserved it when it would have been easier to let it fade away. That courage deserves recognition. Lieutenant Rye approached, datapad in hand. Commander, Admiral Marcus is ready to address the gathering from Earth. Hale nodded. Then let's begin. The assembled representatives took their places in the ancient council chamber. Some wore the formal attire of Alliance worlds. Others, the more practical garments of independent systems. All shared a common purpose: to witness the birth of something new. A holographic projection appeared at the center of the chamber, the dignified figure of Admiral Theo Marcus, representing the Terran Confederation. Distinguished representatives, he began, his voice resonating through the chamber. We gather today not to assign blame for past injustices, but to ensure they are not repeated. The original Alliance Charter, preserved by the Alari through centuries of hardship, reminds us of the noble principles upon which interstellar cooperation was meant to be built. He gestured to encompass the gathering. The Terran Confederation proposes the formation of a new body, an alliance of truth, dedicated to the proposition that all sentient civilizations, regardless of size or military capability, deserve representation and protection under interstellar law. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. An Alliance representative rose. Many Alliance worlds share these sentiments. Admiral, the revelations of recent days have shaken our confidence in our current leadership. Reform is already underway. We welcome that reform, Marcus acknowledged. But history suggests that power, once concentrated, resists redistribution. The Alliance of Truth offers an alternative, not in opposition to a reformed alliance, but as a complement to it, a safeguard against the consolidation of power that led to the marginalization of worlds like Alara. Elder Thorin stepped forward. The Alari support this proposal. For too long, we preserved the truth without the means to share it. Now, we offer our knowledge and our wisdom to this new beginning. One by one, representatives rose to signal their support, first from independent systems, then, remarkably, from several Alliance worlds. The foundations of a new interstellar order were being laid in the very chamber where the Alari had mourned their isolation for centuries. As the formal proceedings continued, Commander Hale stepped outside the dome with Lieutenant Rye, gazing up at the stars, now visible through Alara's clearing atmosphere. Another benefit of Terran environmental assistance. Do you think it will last? Rye asked quietly. This alliance of truth? Hale considered the question carefully. Power will always seek to concentrate itself. Rye. That's the lesson of the original alliance. But knowledge, widely shared, creates its own kind of power, one that's harder to corrupt or control. She gestured toward the dome, where delegates from across the galaxy were forging new connections. What we've done here isn't just about the Alari, or even about humanity's place in the galaxy. It's about establishing a principle that no civilization should be forgotten or abandoned simply because they lack the strength to demand attention. Rye nodded slowly. A principle worth defending. Worth fighting for, Hale corrected gently. Though I hope the fighting part is behind us now. Inside the dome, Elder Vela was showing a group of delegates through the Alari archives, explaining the preservation techniques that had maintained their records through centuries of isolation. Her voice, once hesitant after so long speaking only to fellow elders, now carried confidence and purpose. Our ancestors believed that knowledge, freely shared, was the greatest gift one civilization could offer another, she told them. When we were expelled from the Alliance, we continued to preserve that knowledge, hoping that someday, someone would remember us. A delegate from a world near Earth asked, "And if the humans hadn't come, would you have continued preserving these records for another 500 years? Elder Vela smiled, an expression of serenity and determination combined. For 5,000, if necessary, truth does not expire, even when those who know it are forgotten. On the outskirts of the Alari system, the Alliance fleet remained in its holding position, Admiral Krazel had received new orders, not from the Shadow Web, whose influence was rapidly diminishing as investigations spread throughout Alliance territory, but from the legitimate civilian authority that was reasserting control. Monitor, but do not interfere. The directive stated, diplomatic channels are being established with both the Alari and the Terran Confederation. Peaceful resolution is the priority. Krazel found himself relieved by these orders. The military confrontation he had been prepared to lead would have resulted in casualties on both sides, perhaps even the destruction of the Alari civilization, all to preserve a lie that had festered for centuries. As he watched the diplomatic vessels arriving at Alara, Krazel reflected on how quickly everything had changed. The mighty alliance, which had dominated interstellar politics for millennia, now found itself adjusting to a new reality, one where power alone no longer guaranteed authority. And it had all begun because humanity had remembered a forgotten race when no one else would. 1 month after the formation of the Alliance of Truth, Elder Thorin stood on the surface of Alara, beyond the dome that had enclosed his people for generations. The air, once toxic from centuries of neglect, had been partially cleansed by Terran atmospheric processors. Saplings, the first new trees on Alara in over 300 years, stretched their delicate branches toward the crimson light of their sun. Beside him walked Commander Hale, who had become not just an ally, but a friend during these transformative weeks. The Alliance delegation arrives tomorrow, Thoran noted, watching engineers from 3 different worlds collaborating on a new water reclamation system. The formal recognition of Alari sovereignty after 5 centuries of denial. A significant moment, Hale agreed. Though I suspect the separate trade agreement with the Terran Confederation might prove more immediately beneficial to your people. Thoran smiled, the expression coming more naturally now, after weeks of having genuine reasons for joy. Indeed, the exchange of medical knowledge alone will benefit both our civilizations. Your biotechnology combined with our ancient healing techniques offers possibilities neither would have discovered alone. They walked in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the activity around them. Alari elders worked alongside Terran specialists and representatives from a dozen worlds, all contributing to the renewal of a civilization that had nearly been lost to history. I've been meaning to ask you something, Hale said finally. The original message that brought us here. We remember the Alari. We see you. We are coming. Your people seemed surprised by it, yet it clearly referred to you. Thoran nodded. A mystery that has since been explained. It seems a group of human historians discovered references to Alari healers in ancient Earth records. When they presented their findings to your Admiral Marcus, he recognized an opportunity to right an ancient wrong, while also establishing humanity's commitment to interstellar justice. So it was humanity all along, Hale mused. Yes and no, Thoran replied. The message came from humans, but the memory, the recognition of who the Alari were and what was done to us, that memory lived in many hearts across many worlds. It simply needed someone with the courage to act upon it. In orbit above them, the Defiant Dawn maintained its vigilant watch, though the threat of confrontation had diminished significantly. Lieutenant Rai, now promoted to commander, following her role in Operation Truthbearer, supervised the integration of Alari sensor technology with Terran defense systems, a collaboration that enhanced the capabilities of both. The Shadow Web, exposed to the light of public scrutiny, had collapsed rapidly. Investigations throughout Alliance territory had revealed centuries of manipulation, with dozens of high-ranking officials implicated in the systematic suppression of information and marginalization of smaller civilizations. Admiral Krazel, to the surprise of many, had provided crucial testimony about the planned disinformation campaign against the Terrans and Alari. His decision to speak truth to power had cost him his command, but earned him unexpected respect from former adversaries. As the reforms within the Alliance continued, the Alliance of Truth grew steadily, welcoming worlds that valued transparent governance and mutual protection. It was not a military coalition to rival the Alliance, but rather a community bound by shared principles, principles that the original Alliance had abandoned long ago. On Earth, Admiral Theo Marcus addressed the Terran Confederation Council, summarizing the events that had transformed the interstellar landscape. In standing for the forgotten, we discovered our own place among the stars, not as conquerors or colonizers, but as defenders of principles that transcend any single civilization. The Alliance of Truth now includes 27 worlds, with more expressing interest each day. The reformed Galactic Alliance has reopened diplomatic relations with civilizations it once abandoned, including the Alari. He paused, allowing the significance to register with his audience. But perhaps, most importantly, we have established that the worth of a civilization is not measured by its military might or economic output, but by its contribution to the greater good. The Alari preserved truth when it would have been lost. Humanity remembered them when others chose to forget. Together, we have created something that neither could have achieved alone. As dusk fell on Alara, Elder Thorin and Commander Hale watched the first stars become visible in the clearing sky. Among them were the lights of vessels from across the galaxy, coming to witness and participate in the rebirth of a civilization that had nearly been erased from history. "What does the future hold for the Alari now?" Hale asked. Elder Thorin considered the question, his ancient eyes reflecting the starlight above. "For 5 centuries, we preserved knowledge without the means to share it. Now, we can fulfill our true purpose once more, not just as keepers of the past, but as teachers helping to build a more just future." He gestured toward the saplings reaching for the stars. "Like these young trees, we will grow again, not to what we once were, but to something new, shaped by both our history and the friendship that saved us from oblivion." In the glass dome that had once been their prison and their sanctuary, the Alari Council prepared to welcome representatives from across the galaxy. The ancient chamber, designed for isolation, had been transformed into a place of connection and exchange. Tomorrow, they would step fully back into the interstellar community, not as supplicants begging for recognition, but as equals, offering wisdom earned through centuries of perseverance. And in the archives beneath the dome, alongside the historical records that had changed the course of galactic politics, a new crystal began to record a different kind of history, the story of how humanity remembered a forgotten alien race, and in doing so, transformed the stars themselves. The red dwarf sun of Alara would continue its slow burn for billions of years to come, and now, the civilization it nurtured would continue as well, no longer forgotten, no longer alone, but connected once more to the tapestry of intelligent life that spanned the galaxy. A tapestry richer and stronger for the threads that had almost been lost, now rewoven by the hands of those who refused to let injustice stand unchallenged. No one had stood with the forgotten alien race until humanity arrived. And in that arrival, both found something precious, a future built on truth, compassion, and the simple, powerful principle that no one should be forgotten, no matter how small their voice might seem against the vastness of the cosmos.